when it comes to the high school, lacrosse and everything, and any sports really. Instead of going home, if I'm a high school student, just doing my homework or whatever you do when you go home from school. But then all of a sudden I see on social media while I'm chilling at home, a bunch of my friends on a video that's blowing up, all cheering and going crazy. And I see one of my boys like hit a cool, sick clip, and all of a sudden I'm like, dang, what am I doing at home? Like, I want to go to that game. That's how it starts. It starts to compound itself. It's growing, and people are not wanting to miss out on these moments that they're seeing on social.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Clubhouse Talks. Today, we're joined by Steven Cannon, better known as Stevachii, on Instagram and all their platforms. Steven, welcome.
How you doing, man?
Appreciate you joining. I want you to give a quick intro on yourself to our listeners, people that know you, people that might not know you. From now on in this episode, you'll go by Stevachii. But yeah, give us a rundown on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for most people that know me, it's outside the media realm, it's Steven Cannon. So a lot of you guys are gonna be like, oh my gosh, like Stevachii, that's not his actual name. But yeah, my name's Stevachii. I've been in the media realm for, I would say, the last 13 years, but the last, I would say, 7 years I've been in the sports realm specifically. And so built my wife and I started Phil Vision Media, and for a lot of people, at least in Illinois, and it's obviously expanding across the nation as well, they've been able to see our product and kind of what we do, and so it's super cool of what is building, what Stevachii's become, and what I'm able to kind of help reach and help change lives with Stevachii and Phil Vision Media. And obviously we'll kind of get into that, what that even means and how we're doing that. But yeah.
So I started doing these episodes to start interviewing people around like the sports, especially like local sports industry, but also in business in general, to share stories of people like starting their own business and kind of share this like very early part of people's businesses so that people interested in getting into it or just learning about you can hear about it. And I couldn't help but notice, like, being on Instagram and running a account for sports, to have your account like continuously show up. And I didn't know who you are, but like it would show up, and like these local high school teams would look like they're playing for like the national championship, like the way it's recorded so well and edited so well, and like the sound effects. And I was just like, it got me like even more excited to watch these teams, even though it was like some middle of nowhere high school I don't care about, and they're facing off, and I'm like, oh yeah, like, did you see that play? And I'm texting my brother, like, and so it was crazy to see, like, I could just see the impact right away of what you do to these programs and like to a sport in general. So I immediately was like, I need to bring you on to like share what you're doing, because it's really interesting. I think for everybody involved. So can you give like a little scale of like where you're at, like who you're working with, like who's your audience right now, and who do you see your audience growing to?
Yeah, right now, if you were to kind of go on the account, you'd see a lot of lacrosse. And so at the moment, our biggest, sport that we're doing right now is lacrosse, but we want to expand into all sports. That's, what's going to be really exciting. But it's really cool right now. We actually just did a formal partnership with Stevachii Official, which for anyone that's in Illinois, you guys know how cool that account is and how that's run, and the media that they do. And I think one of the things that they don't have is the lacrosse side of things. And so found a partnership with that. And that was a really cool victory. Last year, we worked with the IWLCA, which is I have two younger sisters. So when it comes to working on the girls side of things for sports, I get really passionate about that, and so we worked with them, and then other brands like Lax All Stars, 5 Star, which is kind of both of them are kind of together, and then Lax.com, US Cup Lax, Inside Lacrosse Network. I mean, just a lot of the big names. If I forgot anyone, sorry if they watch this, but and so it's been really cool to work with a lot of them, learn from them as well. I think that's the other thing, is being try to be as much humble as possible to learn how they've scaled their businesses, how they've done that. And then be just a lending hand to them and their products of what they're doing, which has in turn helped us grow as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think we can dive into one, like just starting journey for you and how you've started this as a business, and then get into a little bit more of like the technical side of like anybody who's interested in getting into this, and then three, getting into how programs can kind of utilize this like new era of media. And I think like you're at like a
Right.
perfect combination of talent and time with like your skills and how you're able to put it together with Instagram. And like, I remember coming up in high school playing sports and you were lucky enough to maybe get like a black and white photo printed of you in there. And now kids can get like an
So true.
intense like movie highlight like 1 hour after the game and everyone
Yeah.
shares it if it was cool enough and it's at other schools. And like if you had a highlight in high school, like
Right.
when we were in high school, we had a highlight. Like all that you had of it was if somebody else in the team like saw you do that, and then it was just folklore after that. So
Yeah.
it's crazy, like the new
Yes.
wave of media and what it can do. And I also want to get into like I feel like it's changing the way people can recruit for their teams to get like younger kids involved in
Yeah.
sports, or I feel like the fans are getting bigger. Like there's more people showing up to a game. I don't know if that's just me or if you're filming it the right way, but the impact is huge in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's actually cool, real quick, before you hop into that. Like, even recently at an event that I did, one of the kids, I didn't know it was his birthday, but his parents came up. I did a video of him scoring, and his parents came up. They're like, we know you don't know this, but our kid was like, I just want my one birthday wish is to, get a video of Stevachii, to get a video of me and for it to get posted up. And, when they told me that, I was like, dude, that's why I do this. I'm like, I had no idea that was his birthday wish. I'm just doing my job. But I'm like, man, I wish that all my highlights playing football when I was younger could have been recorded, or track. And I'm like, man, there's just nothing. So to give that to the kids now is special to see how it impacts them. But yeah, just wanted to share
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. All right, so to give backstory, starting story, and how this got going, before Field Vision Media, when you've started going as Stevachii and everything you're doing, tell me about the start of you like with the camera and how this got going.
Yeah, so it's before the camera was picked up, there was I didn't have it was just Stephen Cannon. And so it was I was actually doing a church camp, and I had a bunch of the teens, and so we're it was like Thursday, it was like 4 days in, and I was kind of dumb and I brought a lot of nice clothes. So back then, before I got into the sports realm, I would like overdress everywhere I went. And and so my suitcase was open, and a bunch of the younger kids were like, "Oh my gosh, like your clothes are so cool. Like, are you ever gonna think about doing a clothing line?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's crossed my mind, but I haven't really thought about it too much. I got to find a name first. And I was like, hey, if you guys have any names that you think of, let me know. And all of a sudden, so there was a kid that hadn't spoken the entire week so far. I was like, he doesn't want to be here. That's fine. He hasn't spoken, like, and so we all thought he was taking a nap in the far corner. And when I had said like, hey, if you guys have any ideas about a name, all of a sudden we hear Stevachii just off in the distance, and we're like, wait, what? Did he just speak? And so we all kind of like, me and these little kids, we all walk over, and I'm like, hey, did you like, what'd you say? And he like lifts his head up and he goes, Stevachii, and then puts his head back down. And I was like, what in the world? I was like, that's it. That's my name. That's what I'm going with. And so, I always told myself, if I ever I'm financially free and I'm, rolling and I'm doing well, he's going to I got to find him first, but he's going to get a check in the mail for helping me out. So that's how Stevachii started. And then I've always had like a passion for creativity, for trying to capture moments. Maybe that has to do with my last name being Cannon. I don't know. But so when my very first time going to pick up a camera was a Canon 80D, and but when I went to Best Buy, I was like, I don't know what I want, and the guy was like walking me around to the different cameras. The first one he showed me was a Canon, and then he went to Nikon, Sony, and different ones, and I realized if I actually become something in an industry and someone asks me, hey, what camera do you use? And they know my name, my actual name, and I say anything but Canon, all right, I have no idea. Maybe it's, I don't know why it's celebrating.
That was
That
wild.
was a milestone, I guess. All right. But I think I got to stick with Canon. So the guy's like ripping off and he's talking about all the good things about these other cameras. And I was like, hey, I'm sorry, like to stop you. I think I got to go with just Canon. Like I'm going to go with that. And so that was my first camera. That's how my journey started. And I ended up moving to, so I grew up in Illinois or Indiana. And then I moved to Illinois about, I want to say 9 years ago, something like that. And when I did an internship with a company in the John Hancock Center for marketing and got to do a lot of cool things. And then after that, I ended up working for a real estate investment firm in the city. And I thought I was going to be doing a lot more marketing and like more like travel with like drone shots and all of that. It was completely different. It was like Excel sheets, numbers. I'm like, this is not my vibe at all. And so what's funny is I would get my work done and then I would just stay in the city and I would just do like vlogs and I'd do like, videos in the city and just trying to like dabble and figure out like where I wanted to do. And that was kind of on the scene where like vlogging was becoming a little bit bigger and YouTube and I was like, maybe I can do something with that. And so after that, kind of, I realized like my passion was definitely not doing what I was doing at my job, especially how to get to the city was just a lot. I was living in Naperville at the time, and so anyways, I kind of stopped working at that company and went full time on social media, which was really daunting. I was like, man,
Yeah, wait, hold up. You jumped to.
especially during that time.
Did you have like you went full time social media? Did you have like some following? Did you have like? Did you have client? What do you mean you jumped?
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah,
if I'm sounding like
I
your parent
know.
right now.
It's so I yeah, no, it's so I had like I want to say I had maybe 7,000 followers. But during that time, and I guess this will take us into a little bit of a I wasn't sure how complex I was going to get into it, but basically, I so there was a software that like could take a photo and you could bring it to life. So it would kind of be it was on the beginning of all that stuff, and so I started to dabble into it a little bit more, and then I started to work on doing that stuff. I would find a photo. I'd work with content creators that like do those amazing like scenes in a photo, and then I would bring it to life if there was an ocean, the sky, and so. The owners and developers of the app saw all the stuff I was doing and they're like, hey, we want to work with you more. And we have gigs, we have clients that we want to do stuff with you. And so I'm like, sure, sounds good. Like, okay, I'll dabble into that.
Were you just doing
And
those
that turned
edits?
into,
Were you just doing those edits like you
yeah,
saw some cool photos, you would take the photo and do something with it, or were those people like
yeah.
sending these to you were just like I'm gonna mess around and see how I can make this cooler?
Yeah, it started off with I just want to mess around, make this cooler. And then it was such a new thing that then people were like, we'll pay you to do that. And it turned into I did like something for like the Golden Globes reached out. They wanted me to do something for like one of their clients, and it was funny because I remember getting an email. I thought it was fake. I got an email, and they're like, "Hey, we want it's the Golden Globes. We want to work with you on this client." And I'm like, "Okay, when's it due?" They're like, "Tomorrow. We need it by tomorrow morning." And so I'm like, okay. So stay up all night. I'm jumping up. My roommates are like, what's going on? I'm like, dude, I don't even, I can't even like fathom what's going on right now, And I didn't even know my rates. I was just like, it's a Golden Globe,
Yeah.
so maybe I just throw a big number at them, and they're like, sounds good. I'm like, dang it, I like said 600, and I was like, they were like, okay, sounds great. I'm like, dang, I should have done like a bigger number. So, but I was new to all of it, but that like then I did something for Asics, the shoe company, and so that's kind of like when the developers started to see, and so they're like, hey, we have some clients that we want to like work with you a little bit more, and so it's funny because I was working with them. That was kind of my how I was making money during that time frame, and it was a little bit difficult because a lot of corporations sometimes they don't pay right away. It takes like a month or 2 or 3 months, depending on their how they operate financially. And so, anyways, they had an opening for like their company, but right before that, I had taken another job, and I had taken it on behalf of my friend. I'm very loyal, so I was like, it was the day of my first day on the job, and so the company called me up and they're like, hey, we want to offer you a job. Our headquarters are here in Maui, which I already knew that, and they're like, we would set you up with a place, everything would be paid for. The salary was an insane number, and I told him, I was like, hey, I actually just started another job. And I'm also really big on relationships. And so I didn't want to just like move out there, not knowing anyone. So they were like so shocked that I said no. I mean, most people would be. And so,
This was in
but they're like,
Maui,
hey,
like Hawaii.
yeah, Maui. Yeah, yeah. Most people would be like, dude, you're so dumb.
Yeah,
I know. But I know it was. I look back now and I'm like, I am glad that I made the decision that I did
yeah.
because of all the things that I've started now. I don't think I had started what I am and doing what I am now if I had gone. But they're like, okay, no worries. Hey, could we at least fly you out here and do a little bit of a documentary on how you know, on our platform? And so I went there and I was there for like 2 months. It was wild. Experienced a lot of cool things. Got to do a little project for Usher and work with like big name people. It was wild. It's very very surreal. I remember when I flew back in and I touched down in Chicago. I was like, what just happened? I was like, now I'm back to reality,
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, that's kind of how that started. But my friend, who's his name's Graham Rouse, he was best man at my wedding, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm a coach for Glen Ellen Bulldogs," and he's like, "Do you want to come out and film a game?" And for lacrosse, and I'm like, "Dude, sure." Like I have no idea what lacrosse even really is, and so I went out there. It's just these little kids, and I'm like, man, like what's happening with the ball? Like this is wild. Like what am I even doing here? And
It
and
must have been
so,
so
but
hard to
after,
adapt to filming. It's so hard to watch
yes,
lacrosse in general. Like if you don't
yeah,
know it, to follow the ball and the
right.
camera. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was even for little kids. I was like, I don't know what's happening, and so it's so funny though because afterwards, I was like, man, I think I really did. Like I was looking at the footage, I'm like, man, I think I did a good job for my first time. I was like, man, and this sport's kind of cool. The kids were so. One thing about lacrosse is that when they score, they are so for majority of the time, especially in big games, but even at the younger age, when they score, they're just fired up. Where in like another sport, if it's like basketball and they hit a shot, like it's just you're going right back in the defense. You might get like super excited for a second, but it's not like the whole team's running. The only other
Mm-hmm.
sport that like I feel like hits that feel is I mean there's other ones, but like soccer, because it's so hard to score in soccer, and so once you do, I mean it's just the celebrations are a little bit even overboard
Yeah.
sometimes. So,
But high
but
school
yeah,
soccer,
that's
I feel
but
like
I
can fall flat with those celebrations. I feel like it usually
yes,
just kind of like
100%.
they'll just all jog back. But yeah, lacrosse, they'll get like
Yep.
15 goals in a game and they're jumping on each other every one.
Right. They have all these like unique sellies, and it adds for the production of the media too, which is cool as well.
I'm
But
sure
yeah,
you've
after
encouraged it a
that,
bit.
I
The fact that
yes,
you're
yes.
filming it,
Some
now they're
coaches
playing
like
up.
yes, yes. Some of the coaches don't like it, but we're like, it adds to it, We're like,
Yeah.
do it. If the coach is like chill with it, it's like go ahead. So, but yeah, so that was kind of after that game. I was like, man, I think I kind of like lacrosse. I want to kind of get more into this. And so that's honestly where the start of me filming lacrosse started, and just doing things for for different clubs, or definitely that's where after a little bit of doing it for about a year or so, that's when I started doing my first gig. Was for Benue University, and so shout out to Chris Button for that, and so it got me my first like college, and then that honestly changed into me once some of the other colleges around the area saw it, then it was like Lewis University, Aurora, and I love those programs as well. And it was really cool. So that's kind of from there. I guess Stevachii is how that built. I don't know if you asked if like to go into how it then changed to Phil Vision Media as well,
So,
or if we want to.
so you say your first gig was that Ben U, and you say first gig because that was the first time you had like charged for your lacrosse film. Is that right? Like for you to
Yeah,
show up
yeah,
and
yeah. First,
so was that
yep.
based on like you had done one game for your friend, maybe a couple other things, but you've kind of tested it out a little bit before you even charged for your first client, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it was, it's starting off is so difficult to figure out what your rates are, especially when your product may not be the best. I mean, I've had kids reach out and they're like, "Hey, like what should I charge?" And it's tough sometimes, Now, I mean, kids are different these days where they're they could be in high school, freshman, sophomore, and just as good as me when it comes to the camera, So it's a lot different now. But when I was first starting off, I mean, there wasn't as many tutorials when it comes to shooting sports games, and so the quality wasn't that good. But there was also a market for it, so it was trying to figure out that balance of what they want it, they need it. It helps them getting recruiting, for their recruitments and stuff. I have the ability to give this to them. Where do we find medium with the quality that I have? So I think I started off. I won't say a number or anything, but I started off at a little bit of a low number, and that I would say now. But that was just to get in the door, start doing stuff for them. And my quality of work, though, was also not that great back then. So as I've expanded, you need more money from better equipment. So you have to, expand your how much you're charging. But at that beginning moment, yeah, it was once I kind of found that number and they were like, sounds good, we'll do that. And I'm sure there's a little bit of negotiating that happened, which is usually what happens. And so once that we figured that out, yeah, it was kind of off and running from there. But those are important too, though, to kind of, especially when there's not anything happening in your area and you're kind of the only person doing it. Once you do that rate for that person, you kind of set the rate for other, because a lot of everyone knows each other and you don't want
Yeah.
to get into that battle. And so you kind of set the tone for the rest, and which is harder to when you want to go, hey, everyone, next year I'm raising my rates. But I think that it comes with the building that relationship with them, making sure they understand why you're increasing the rates with the product that you're giving.
Hmm.
But yeah, hopefully that answers kind of what you're asking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think anybody who's starting out too, it's good to like get an idea from like talking to people like you or other people in the industry to get an idea of where
right,
the rate is for somebody at your level. And then when you're starting out,
yeah,
like you said, like just get a couple people in the door of like just do it for free, and then you start someone's interested,
yeah,
charge your first one. And an easy way to like raise your prices in the future is to say, hey, like my prices, I'm like next year, like I'm going to be charging this much, but I want to get my first few clients in. And if you want to be my first client, like I'll give it to you for like 50%
right,
off, just because I'm trying to. If you're like
yeah,
transparent with somebody, like one, they'll be like, yeah,
yeah,
sick, I'll get 50% off.
yep,
And they'll understand when you go full price next year and say, hey, like I appreciate you. Now I've
right,
got a book of business. So they can
yeah,
let a path up for yourself in the future. Um,
right, yeah,
and then you said big on relationships. It's important to be transparent. So then they know to like plug you for other people. Like they know you're just starting out. They're going to want to
right.
help you and they'll introduce you to other people. Right.
Yeah. That's honestly the biggest thing is transparency, being real with people, communication. I mean, any of the things that I've seen that haven't worked in the past is because there's been a lack of communication for whatever the situation was. And so I think communication, being transparent, being open and real, and also letting them know like, hey, you know, I want to work with you. How can we go about that? Because on their end, they go, man, this we want to work with someone like this. Someone that we can trust, someone that like has their best interests. And I also would say like you touched on it, doing stuff for free, to not be afraid to do that. I think a lot of people they go like, man, I got to get paid if I'm going to go out there and film this. And when you're first starting off, and you don't have any foots in the door, you gotta pay your dues. Like let them see what you can do before you start asking them for money. And I think it also shows a character that, hey, I'm willing to invest in you without anything or for a discount. And you are in return without even realizing investing in yourself, because it may not just be that client that sees you. It'll be other clients that also see your work, especially with social media nowadays. You might do something for one client, but like I said, I did it for Ben Yu, and that turned into two other clients through that. So that I didn't
Yeah.
even go to reach out to. They reached out to me. But yeah, so
And there's a huge stigma in the creative world to doing free work, or especially when people approach you and say, "Hey, can you do this?" I'm not going to pay you; it'll be for your portfolio. And so, a lot of people like you should be wary of that. But when you're starting out too, like
yes,
be honest with yourself and say, "Okay, like you'll know when you shouldn't be charging free anymore is when you can't afford it. It's like
right,
because you have
exactly.
somebody else that wants to pay you
Yeah,
that weekend, then you could start raising your
yeah,
prices, but you have to get a lot of reps in first. So a lot of people get
yeah,
offended by the doing it for free, which I get, especially if you're established. But when you're starting out, like
yeah.
take them as opportunities, and then you'll have two people asking for you in the same day, and that's when you can start charging more and more.
Yep. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey for when you're starting off, man. Yeah, it's like, yeah, because now if anyone came to me and they're like, hey, we need you to do this for free, unless it's like a professional team in the NBA or NFL, I'm like, I can't. I'm going to take another opportunity that's going to pay my bills and pay something. But when you're first starting off and yeah, you haven't established that, it's like, hey, it's okay. Have that humility and it'll work its way out. But I think that's also like bringing in other people and voices and wisdom is also good. Other content creators that are maybe farther down the line and go, hey, they're asking me to do this for free, this amount of work for free, or whatever it is this okay? Should I be doing this? You see my work, and just getting advice, I think, is also a really big thing, which is one of the things that with FVM, I love to do is to be a lending hand to a lot of the younger kids or anyone that's needing a hand, because it's important. We're all kind of in it and learning as we go. And I'm still asking questions too to the people that are, higher in the industry and doing bigger things than I am. And that's how we grow. So
Yeah, totally. And even if you do get those free things that you don't really know what to do with, like making the most out of it, you have
yeah,
your own Instagram page, like squeeze as
right.
much highlights from yourself as you can to make it
Yep.
seem like this biggest deal that you worked with them. And then hopefully you can
Yeah,
get, people from there. Um, okay, so we
exactly.
got how you started. Tell us how you've kind of grown your personal brand of Stevachii. I think you were cognizant of like giving yourself this kind of nickname, especially on social, and
Right.
then giving yourself a rebrand to like this bigger group of business. Tell me how that grew.
Right. Yeah, I think one big for me and for people that know me, I'm big on relationships. I'm big on community, and I realized like Stevachii is a very personal name, and so I wanted to when I was talking to my wife. I can't remember. I think it was like right before we got married that we were like starting to think of this idea, but so I think we were engaged maybe at the time, but uh, I was like, I want to create something. One, I wanted to create something with her, but I was like, I want to create something where we can bring people in, and I think it's a lot easier to like bring other content creators in, uh, and for that relationship kind of aspect when it's like a community kind of business feel than just like, hey, you're just helping me, you're just helping my brand, get bigger like that. Because a lot of the industry, not a lot, but like there's tendencies for the industry to be very self-focused about their
Mm-hmm.
brands and about who they are. And so I was like, I want to figure out a way to work with more people, but also be a lending hand in a way that we can work with a ton of content creators and they can feel like, yeah, maybe I'm working with Phil Vision Media or I'm working for them, but I'm also benefiting in a huge way in some of these other ways, whether that's exposure, whether that it is income, whether that's just learning and getting, experience or having connections. And so I think that's where the thought of FVM really came about. And I had most of the content that you see on FVM before was on Stevachii. Like I was doing a lot of like if I got a clip, I'm posting it right on Stevachii. And I was like, man, I want to kind of change that view. I want to kind of change what that looks like. And so basically I just switched all my clients to FVM, and then had now it's like if there's a client for Stevachii, it's very like it's a brand like the Los Reyes Shades. A lot of the kids in the lacrosse realm, they know that like I'm partnered and work with them. It's such an amazing. I mean, the story behind them is really cool too. But so a lot of the kids know me as like the Shades guy in the lacrosse community, and so that's where it's like that helps, like to kind of distinguish myself. But so I think that's where the reason why we started it. And I think another thing is like my wife and I, we just wanted to do something together. Like we wanted to. She's the one that came up with the Feel Vision name, because she was like, we're doing sports, so it's kind of like a field, specifically, I guess, with like lacrosse, but courts
Mm-hmm.
are not maybe a field, but it still has that kind of same resemblance. And then a vision, I think, is so many things that we thought about that where we have a vision, we're helping other kids see their vision for college, for getting whatever their goals are, for businesses and their vision, and then it's a media company. And so that's kind of how it came about. So props to her. Both of my names are not me. They're both smarter people, and so are more creative people as well. But that's kind of how Phil Vision Media came about, and why it was kind of rebranded in a way where I still got to keep Stevachii, but where I could, actually have a business kind of mindset with Phil Vision Media. So
Yeah. And when was that you established a Field Vision account?
you said what was that established it?
When did you establish a Field Vision account?
That was probably, I want to say it was about a year and a half to 2 years ago. So
Okay,
in that time frame, yeah.
cool.
So
When you first started filming lacrosse, like you didn't really know the sport the first time you ever did it,
right,
and you haven't really
yeah.
gotten into that side of content creation. At what point did that click for you of like the possibility of this world of like sports content creation, lacrosse specifically, but seeing this business, like how did that start formulating in your head about putting this business together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I actually had a conversation with one of another content creator. He's like one of the top guys that I know in this field. His name's Joe, and I was talking to him because I was like, dude, I see the value of what we're doing for whatever club we're working with or what event we're going to or whatever it is, and I was like, I know that there's a massive value, but I don't think that like the businesses that we're working with fully see that value. And he goes, dude, tell me about it. That's all of us of what we're having to deal with. But he goes, and this is maybe like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, something like that. I think it was 3 years ago. And he goes, but I truly believe they're going to understand it as time moves forward. It's going to continue to grow. And that stuck with me because I was like, you know what? I got to just stay consistent, and anyone that makes it to any success in whatever field they're in, there's consistency and they don't waver when things are difficult or when people aren't understanding what they're trying to do. They just stay consistent. And then when it is a good product, when it is something that is going to be valuable, people will catch on. And I think that's kind of where, for me, I was like, okay, let me stay consistent. Let me continue to build on my craft, build connecting with people, continue to build good relationships within the industry. I mean, a lot of the top guys in the media industry, at least specifically in lacrosse, but even now expanding outward, I could truly call them my friend and, call upon them and have even outside of just business conversations. And I think that goes a long way. And so I think when I started to, and even going back to like Ben Yu, that was the first that anyone had really seen in Illinois for like a D3, school. And then all of a sudden now it's like a normal, it's like that turned into three schools that we're working with here in Illinois and the college level. And I think the same thing with a lot of the clubs. I remember when I first like stepped into the lacrosse realm, I mean, most of the clubs did not care too much about the media in the way, unless they're a big network like Lacrosse Network or Inside Lacrosse. Outside of that, it wasn't clubs weren't putting the money in that specific area for in their budgets, and it's been unreal to see how that has changed now and the value that they realize if we want to be getting more exposure, we got to be in the public's eye. And to do that, we got to work with brands that actually can help us achieve that. And so I think as times moved forward, I was like, yep, I can see how this is unraveling of how I can take my expertise, my management skills, my connections, and friendships, and build that into a product to then give to the community, at a very low to high level. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard position to be in, like starting a business where, I mean, it's really important that you see the value and so that you can have
right,
the will to keep on doing it consistently when it's getting hard, like you mentioned. But it's really hard when
yeah,
you have to, your potential clients don't see the value or it's not natively, like it's not intuitive to them yet. And then
right,
even more so when you're dealing with like youth sports programs or college sports programs, it depends, but like a lot of those programs are tight in their budget and they've already allocated like for the past how many years, like we spend this much on our jerseys, this much on
yeah,
travel, we're we're expensed out, and now you want us to add in more
yep,
expenses for this thing that doesn't directly bring us in money. So that's like
right.
a daunting probably thing to jump into from a new experience. But was there a moment that you saw a organization, like was there a video or a client or like a game that you felt like was able to move a needle to show programs like, hey, this is actually should be a part of your budget? Was there
Right.
a moment like that for you?
Yeah, well, actually, 100%. It's funny because yeah, ROI is the hardest thing when it comes to some of that, and you kind of touched on that. Like they want to know, okay, if we're putting this amount of money into media, what is our immediate ROI is going to be? Like, what are we going? And unfortunately, there it's next to impossible, at least with what we do, to go. Oh, you're going to get this amount of money back, right? But we know that like there's a family, there's multiple families that saw those videos or saw the experience and go, we want to be a part of that. And so I think it started back with, and it's funny because but this is how like my career started, and I'm continuing to kind of talk about the colleges and here, but like with Ben Yu and Lewis and Aurora, when they would come to me and go, hey, the we saw our numbers increase with kids wanting to come play with us after we paid money to have you come play, to come film us. That was like, that's what I hadn't heard that yet, right? I had done all this work for different clients, but I never saw like the success stories of immediately of how I've helped them, right? It was just like, oh, that was a good video, or thanks for doing that, or that was, that was a cool experience. But that was the first time that it was like, hey, you coming to be with us and to do media. We've never seen numbers like this before. Like kids are coming because they want to have that exposure. They want to play, and so that's when I was like, oh, that's what I've been. That's the piece that I haven't seen yet to be able to help others to go, because I haven't had the success story yet. I know that. Like I know, internally, I know this is getting more people in the doors. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, that it's very clear to me. But for others, when they've been in such a same, like you said, they have their budgets per year to come bring in another thing that messes up all those budgets that they had for so long. That's super difficult, and it's hard to get them to go, okay, we're going to do that. But then to be like, hey, here's some success stories, this is why you need to. And then from there, honestly, then it starts to just be word of mouth, like, hey, you got to do this, right? And I think that's what's honestly probably helped, is that there's a lot of word of mouth, or things like this where we're talking and people are hearing it and they're going, oh man, maybe I do need to like switch my budget around, get some content creators or get a business to come out and do something for us. And the same thing with like Culver. I know a lot of people know that we work with Culver, and that was another big thing where the exposure, everyone knew Culver, everyone like knew how good they were. But I was told by multiple people after we covered them last year, at like a really big, I mean, we just went all out for them. And so, I mean, they're like, dude, it was just always in our face. Like anytime I would open up Instagram, I'd see Culver. And, it's like, there it is. Like that's how we reach the masses, without having to like you spend the money on us. You don't have to go spend money on ads. We're gonna get the because I think that's another thing is they ads are good, but like I think with how I don't want to get like I don't want any like big networks going like, oh, you're diminishing what we're doing. But I think like, when you have your product, you're just like, hey, we don't have to put a ton of money into an ad. We can just, it'll do itself. It'll work itself out. We don't have to do a Facebook or Instagram ad and stuff. And so, again, if you have the money, then obviously you can do that to a little cherry
Mm-hmm.
on top. But so yeah, I hopefully that answers what you're kind of asking. So
Yeah, I mean that marketing end of it of like it's organic marketing where you post it and you have this honey that like all these viewers, like whether it be players themselves or people who recently graduated want to see like their high school or college, or parents that are looking for their kids to do different things, and if they see like
right,
professionally done exciting content like you said, they're like, I want to be part of that. That goes a long way.
yeah,
And I think the biggest thing, like you've gotten past now, like that first threshold of like getting the first couple clients to post like nice content on their
right,
pages. Because once that happens,
yeah,
all the other people notice that they don't have that. And there's a FOMO part of that. And then people start
yeah,
talking and they say, wait, we want that. How can we
yeah.
do this? But I think, tell me your perspective as a professional. You have like really high end stuff for somebody who like wants to get into this, like take their first step in it. I personally think that like iPhones are so good right now, like just starting on a very basic level, just to show yourself that you can get a little bit of traction by just showing
Right.
some personality of your team, of like posting videos or posting a little
Yeah.
photo, can go a long way. And then once you see that, then you can upgrade to other things, but you don't have to jump into super high production value right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're correct with whether it's like a iPhone or whatever other phones that do really well, or even like a cheap camera as well. I think getting out there and just getting your hands dirty with just shooting. I have seen, especially here in Illinois, because it's kind of funny. It was really just me doing lacrosse here in Illinois for a while from the media standpoint when I first started out, and to see the amount of kids that are now like doing it and that I'm like, collabing with and I'm helping them out. They're in my DMs asking all the different questions and trying to get help, and to see them grow right in front of my eyes is super cool. And so, but I see it because they're just going to a game. They're shooting and then they're going back. They're seeing their product, and they're then most likely they're looking at my product or someone else that's even better than me and going, okay, how can I get my product to be like that? Well, it's great. You just ask questions. You go on YouTube, and so I think it's a lot of people. Their first time, they're a little bit scared. Like even my wife, actually, this is a great, pumping her up. She was so timid. Most people would probably know this, but um, she was so timid when she went to her first lacrosse game. And I was like, yeah, come on out. Like, come on, you can, shoot beside me, do some photos. And she's like, I mean, okay, and she's like, so like, I'm not going to do well. And I'm like, if you just do it, have it, like, don't worry, no, this is just you shadowing, just kind of doing it. And, I think it's another thing. I definitely pumped her up no matter what it was, and gave her some, here and there critiques and stuff. But to see where she's at now, I'm like, let's go. This is awesome. So I think it's just going out there, getting out of that comfort zone. It's scary sometimes. You see the product of other people and you want to be there immediately, and it's okay not to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of content creators that I see their work and I'm like, dang, like I kind of want my work to look like theirs. And I think if you can get out of the comparing and just focus on yourself, but then when it comes to the other people that you're looking at, not looking at them as like competitors or like, it's more how can I get wisdom from them? Because believe it or not, they were in your spot at one point as well. And so I think, yeah, the biggest thing is just getting out of your comfort zone and just doing it, just going out there and shooting. So,
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do for anybody that like has that timidness or shyness to them, to get out and like
yeah,
to film, even though they're behind the camera, it feels like they're calling attention to themselves or something. I don't know. I could see that somebody
yeah,
being timid for the first time doing that. Um,
yeah.
But I imagine that's probably a huge icebreaker. Your first one, you get some, then you have a bunch of
Mhm.
content that you can spend. I feel like just by you telling me, I don't know about editing, but I feel like if you film a game, you have so much stuff to work with, and then you can work with them on different ways, right? They can edit it different ways, and then you could like
Yeah,
just by that one, you
yeah,
could figure out like a bunch of practice that you can do from even just like one clip. How many different ways can you tell a
right.
different story?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because even this past weekend, there's a kid that just happened. He's actually his photos are amazing, and so he was at the Navy versus Army game. He was in town for that. He's actually from here in Illinois, um, and he reached out and he took a video. And the video, I was like, okay, this is a cool video. Like he got the shot, he tracked it, but it was very very like jittery. And so I was like, hey, can you send me the video so that I can kind of like see what else I could do to it to make it, a little bit more professional. And I loved his humility. Like it was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, cause even for me, I'm like, I don't want this to look like I'm like, hey, your stuff isn't good. I want it to be like,
Yeah.
hey, I see so much potential. I just want to see how maybe I can help. So I looked at it. He sent me the raw footage. I looked at it. I stabilized, and it truly was just stabilizing it and then just framing it a little bit better. And so it went from this jittery shot to just smooth. He tracked it well. It was all good. And so I sent it back to him and I was like, dude, this is what I did, like to change it up. These are the little pointers that I did so that he understood like what I added to it. And but it was like that little bit of a thing where now all of a sudden this great photographer, young kid, now is like learning a little bit about the photography or the videography realm. And so very much so. I think the editing. I mean, I had two photographers last year when I brought him out to kind of do like an internship and shadow me for an event. And their photos, these two guys were up in my wedding, so I can kind of be a little bit more. I can be a little bit more real about it, but I mean, their stuff was bad. It was bad. They had never taken photos like that before, never shot lacrosse, so I was expecting it though. And with just a little bit of critiques, their stuff now is awesome. Like it was just like, I mean, even during that event, from their first game to then their last game, the difference was unbelievable. And I told them, I was like, guys, I appreciate your humility because we're all boys, so it's like sometimes that can get a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
iffy. And I'm like, but that's how we grow. And now, one of them, he loves it so much that he went out and bought $10,000 worth of equipment. He's in it now. He's like one of my close friends. Well, he's one of my obviously he's my best friend, but he's a guy that like I look to if there's an event, I'm like, hey, can you go to this? I trust him in that way, and that's just within a year. So yeah, it's cool to just go out there and do it, learn, have humility, get that wisdom, and I think honestly through like videos and just learning and it's
Mm-hmm.
super quick that you can start to pick up, especially with the camera equipment nowadays.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a great start. So, but yeah,
And I want to jump now to talking to people running sports programs, but I think a good transition for that is like for them, like for people to start their running sports programs and how to get started in content is like there are now a lot of people, a lot of kids who, oh, sure, there's a lot of kids who want to be on the varsity team and everything like that, but there's also kids who like want to be taking the cool videos. So there's kids like
yeah,
over town that have cameras or maybe they at school that can rent out a camera. There's like a lot of different things happening. Like if you're running a sports
right,
program, like put a flyer out to parents. Like they have kids who are
yeah,
interested in doing this stuff, right?
right, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think kids, when you're at that age, I mean, you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life, right? And so if there's a passion that a kid has, and you're running the media for your school or whatever it is, and you're like, there's kids that are going to want to do it. They're going to want to go out there. They're going to want to shoot. And I think the biggest thing is like finding ways. Like, this is one of the big things for what I'm wanting to do and have been doing for FVM is like, how can I give you opportunities? How can I help you achieve what you want to achieve and grow the way you want to grow? And so I think like if there's any and everything, if I'm, for the sports media companies or for, high schools or colleges, yeah, finding ways. I mean, because sometimes there's a little bit restrictions, and I get that. Some of them have restrictions for games, but um, give those opportunities like to those kids. Allow them to that are going to that school. And and I think you'll see one as managing that, you'll see things that you can even be a better manager, and things that you can excel, and help the kids and help the media change while you're working with them, and critique it a little bit to where it's benefiting you the way that you want to, and then you're giving them an opportunity that helps them find their passion even more, where if you're like, nope, not going to give this to you, or like, hey, restrictions are too much, and I guess I'm more talking to the high school, because there are reasons why there's restrictions for the college realm, and processes with that. But on the high school, it's like, yeah, like I want to help the kids out, allow them to learn, and don't suffocate them from being able to expand their horizon in that realm. Because for a lot of people, from what I've seen, they hop into it and they love it, and they want to just you know, continue to grow in it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, that's a whole other thing you could jump into. Like, I feel like you probably host a whole podcast about like helping kids getting started. But it's just funny seeing the clips of like now you're posting, and then I could see there's like 3 kids on the sidelines like taking the videos. I'm like, wow, that's
yeah,
really cool to see. But okay, so
right,
going to people running sports programs, people that are like coaches, directors, athletic directors, um, that
yeah,
are seeing this new wave of media. I think it's getting to a point now where it's hard to miss unless they're just completely off social media. And if they are, they probably hear it from their
yeah,
players or the parents. They're seeing
right,
it and they are want to know what's going on. Can you like kind of lay out
yeah.
what you've seen over the past, I think even just like a couple of years, few years of like how this sports content for these programs have developed and grown and the impact that you've seen from it firsthand so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of it for, I think there's two different kind of people that, I mean, there's, from what I've seen, there's two different kind of people that you'll run into. You'll run into some of the directors and coaches, and people in those positions, that are running the budgets, or wanting to invest in certain things. You have the ones that are like, we like our old ways. We don't want to put money into that. We want to put it into these other things, and all power to them for doing that. But they're losing out on a lot of stuff, and I think the my best example of that is like Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster was like, they had a great product. They were, they believed in what they were doing. They had been doing it for a long time, but Netflix came in and became something. And most kids that are growing up now don't know what Blockbuster is. Like I would go to Blockbuster, all the time when I was a kid to get a movie. And I think it's that being open to change, being open to investing in something that might feel a little bit like we don't see the value right away. We don't understand why this is important. We don't, but we got to trust that if the industry is doing this, if there's a lot of buzz on this, if this is something that is helping other people out, maybe we should go into this. And so I think having that open mind is really important. And so once you then have the open mind, I think that's where you go, okay, then, hey, then you start reaching out to, whether it's a business like mine, or, to get insight. And a conversation doesn't mean that you have to, like, I mean, there's tons of people that will reach out in those positions to me, and it's just to get an insight on what it looks like to work with a company like mine. You don't have to go into it and be like, okay, we got to give them money right away. It's like, hey, like, what does this look like? How do we operate? Whether you work with me or not, you get that understanding of what that might look like in your budgets, for your team, for your program. But I think anyone that's not doing it are going to see the lack of growth. I truly believe that, from other programs that are using that, down the line. And so I think just, yeah, that open mind, and getting advice, talking to other programs that are near you, or that you have good relationships with, and asking how it's benefited them. And then going, okay, how do we set this up for us here, for what we're doing? So because the kids are going to love it, the parents are going to love it. That's the biggest thing. So
Yeah. What does
yeah,
what does it look like? And you don't have to go into budget if that's not something you have set, but like in terms of someone like reaching out to you, a new program reaches out and they're just curious about like getting started on this, like what does it look like? Do they have to sign on with you for a season? Do they have to sign on with a videographer for a certain game? Do they pay you for a certain amount of clips?
Right.
What does it look like from your end when someone reaches out?
Yeah, I think, and this goes into, I know not everyone goes about it this way, but for how we do FVM, I want to know your dreams. I want to know your goals. Like, let me hear your goals of what you've already thought about. And it may not be in line with like how, like, I might hear it and I might go, that's probably not the best for success, but at least I get to know where you're starting from instead of going, hey, I feel like I know you already, what you're going to want. It's like, share to me your dream, your goal, your vision for getting media for your program. I get to then take that, decipher it, look at how can we operate to where you get that. And so, yeah, it's not, it doesn't have to be a full season. A lot of actually what we do is, hey, send me the games that you would like to have filmed. And then let's go through the deliverables within the packages that we offer, and everyone's going to have a different package that they offer for doing a game, and then you kind of set it out that way. But I think it's always important. Everyone has a different idea of what they want when it comes to media. Some want it where it's just like the quick action clips and reels and photos right after the game, which is one price line. Some want like a full feel of a documentary and more of that style. Well, that's a different price line, and that takes a little bit more
Yeah.
complexity and talking and stuff. So I think that's important for both ends to go into it with having a little bit of, from anyone that's in my position, don't go to a client and go, this is what you need. Ask them what they're looking for, and then you'll know a little bit better with what you can offer to give to them. So I think that's where it's like because we're national now, it's a little bit different in Illinois, where it's like, okay, I can usually personally get to those games. And but I think on the national scale, right now we have around 50 different freelancers that uh, I operate and work with across the nation, and so that kind of travel is a little bit different. So I think it's just logistic comes into all of that, but understanding that your client, I think, is the biggest thing. Whether that's in media or honestly any any profession, is always important. So
Yeah, for sure. And I could see that being daunting for somebody that's starting out to like reach out to uh,
yeah,
somebody for media because they're either scared it's going to be cost too much money or they're scared that it's going to be too much like time investment or things like that. But it sounds like
right,
you with your business and probably other businesses, they reach out, they say, hey, we're trying to just get like really cool clips in this next game, we just want these like reels. You say, okay, here's what we'll do for you. Or hey, we want to do a documentary on our team to recruit the next generation of kids. You could say what that it's going to be, and it'll cater
yep,
based on what their goals are, right?
yeah, yep, absolutely. And not everyone, my skill sets are uh, I have things that I know I'm really good at, but then there's other things that a client might ask, and they're like, and I'm like, I'm not the best at that, but I have a connection that we can help you, to serve that. And so, yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's navigating. But like you said, when you're first starting off, I think it's in that way. I think if you're starting off, understanding what your value points are, what do you bring to the table? And then when you hear what they're asking, how can you then use what you bring to the table to then achieve that? And then if it's like, I can't do that, well, then, hey, it's not like, oh, I lost a client. Be okay with reaching out to someone, figuring out something with them to where they can come in. And I mean, there's other media companies that are growing just as quick, and that uh, as Phil Vision Media is across the country, that I have connections with. And instead of me going, oh, they're a competitor, oh, they're stepping on my territory, it's like, no, we can all grow together. So bringing them in, I think, is always important, and that way you don't lose the client fully. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, especially in a growing industry, like the teamwork and growing the pie versus splitting the one you have is really important, and makes for a better product all around from everybody. Um,
right,
so, last thing on kind of where we're at with like media content for different programs. I again, from my point of view, I follow a lot of the different high school programs. And what I've seen is this growth of like, again, I'm not there, so you tell me, you're the person like boots on the ground, but I feel like from going to high school, I went to Lake Forest High School. lacrosse games, people knew about like the team and what was going on, but like maybe they hear about the game a couple of days later. But it seems like people are showing up to the games more now because of these action packed
Yeah.
films, or like the other teams in the state know who's playing each other because of like all the it's the community that you're talking about, right? Is that
Right.
showing
Right.
through in person? Is that just what I'm seeing a facade on social media, or is the work that you guys are putting on this media side of it coming through with in the in person events?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perfect example that I think maybe a lot of the viewers would be able to connect with, and then I'll tie it into exactly what you're saying is the Caitlin Clark situation, right? Like if there was no media on Caitlin Clark and she was just balling out, but no one like no coverage was happening, no one would be like, "Oh, I want to go to that game." It would just be like, "Oh, like I heard that there's, but I don't, I don't see." Right? That's a lot. That's for most of us. But when it's in our face and big networks are picking it up and they're posting it and it's all that we see, well, now she gets drafted, and one, the numbers have been crazy during the March Madness and stuff. But now everyone's like, "I want to go to a women's basketball game." I mean, that's I don't remember growing up hearing that, and I love that aspect. I'm like, yeah, let's go. And it's because the media, no matter what was going to be happening, she's going to ball out regardless. But they helped share that story, and people are like, I want to see this in person. And so I think when it comes to the high school lacrosse and everything, and any sports really, but if I see instead of going home if I'm a high school student, and usually I'm going home and just doing my homework or whatever you do when you go home from school. But then all of a sudden I see on social media while I'm chilling at home a bunch of my friends on a video that's blowing up, all cheering and going crazy. And I see one of my boys like hit a cool, sick clip. And all of a sudden I'm like, dang, what am I doing at home? Like, I want to go to that game. And so I think that's how it starts, where it starts to compound itself. And even at the national championships, or not national championships, the Illinois high school championships that I've been filming the last, I think, 3 years. And each year it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's funny, actually, each year there's more content creators there as well. So I remember my first year it was literally just me on the field doing like the media. And then and like there was like one photographer or two photographers, but there's no video guys. I was the only one there. It was like Loyola versus Lake Forest, and then the last year, it was like the whole sideline was just all these content creators, and then there was, I think it was a record amount of people that were at the game too. So I think it showcases it's growing. Media definitely helps, and like you said, I think you talked about it earlier. There's a FOMO, especially when you're a kid, or there's a FOMO of missing out on. That's why so many kids go to a football game or a big basketball game. Like, they're gonna hear about it, whether it's on social media or next day at school. I'd rather be at the game and be the one that's talking about it, and being a part of it. And especially when you're getting picked up, some of these videos that we're doing, they're getting, you know, thousands and thousands of views. And if you maybe see yourself on it, like, it's like, dang, look at me. And it's just like, so I think you're completely correct. It's growing, and people are not wanting to miss out on these moments that they're seeing on socials. So,
Yeah, and I feel like then that blossoms into so many parts of the organization. So the the Caitlin Clark example, like she played of her college team in Iowa. I guarantee you, Lake Forest High
right.
School girls basketball had more girls sign up this year because of Caitlin Clark in Iowa college basketball.
Yes.
Same
Yeah.
thing goes here, like
Yeah.
making your local varsity team like celebrities and like leaders, and like making this an awesome event. There's going to be kids that are 10,
Right.
11 years old that want to stick with the sport because they see the camaraderie and the
Yeah.
team aspect. And so if high school programs are looking to get more kids involved in different sports, like this is a great way to show all of that, tell the story of all of that, and get people to want to be a part of it.
Right. 100%. Totally agree.
It's really cool to see that the media being
Yeah.
just the great way to tell the story of it. And I mentioned before, like the timing of it, of having people growing up with technology like you, then to adapt with it to then use it for social media, because like this type of content wouldn't have worked with like local news stations as well, because you can't show all these it back, it doesn't work. But now it's exactly what
Right.
is was needed. So it's really cool to see it come together.
Yeah.
All right, this is the time we have. I know we went through like a ton of stuff. We probably go through a lot more, but to conclude, I want you to kind of recap kind of what you got into, and maybe you've talked about like wanting to help people, especially kids starting up. So maybe let people know where they can contact you and reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're a kid that is like, man, I want to get into photography or videography and learn a little bit more about that and how I can, yeah, excel in that area, whether you're already in it or whether you're trying to get in it, or even if you're like top notch content creator and you're just trying to look for more business, that's what we're wanting to do, is to help people. And I think in route that also helps, kids that maybe want to get recruited. I mean, we helped a kid last year that was playing for Culver. Didn't have any media reach for what he was, at that time. And then I did like a segment on him and did some videos on him and stuff. And then he's now going to Notre Dame, and that was
No
like
way.
such a cool, success story. Yeah, yeah, it's like wild, dude. When I got the text, I was like, this is why we do it, to help kids out, to help people change their lives, see their vision, and help them accomplish it. Actually, there's a kid. His name is Nicholas Menendez, and his family is absolutely amazing. But Nicholas, I had been filming him since he was a little kid, and you're just doing it. And there's another content creator that's been doing. His name is Dax, and he's been then filming him and helping his brand, and so we're both kind of helping out with that. And now he's going to be going to play for Duke, and it's just like so cool. And that was a dream of his. And it's just like you start helping these kids out to do these things, and so I think from and if you're an event, in a media, or you're a school or you're running events and stuff, feel free to reach out as well. I think it's really cool to see how we can help you and them grow. And I think, like we talked about a little bit earlier, if you're tentative about doing it, don't be the blockbuster, be the Netflix, be a part of the change. And you'll see the Caitlin Clark stories, and you be a part of that, a part of growing that, a part of helping that grow for whatever you're doing. And so I think the biggest thing, though, that we're wanting to continue to build is just a community of people that love each other, care for each other, want to help each other out. I don't ever want FBM to be this is all about me. I want it to be about, when you may see on the front page that it's my wife and I, it's our company, but at the same time, as you look more through it, you're going to see all these other content creators, all these other people that are sharing their experiences, that are have different ways of showing their expertise of how they take a video or a photo and edit it. And so I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what we're going to be able to do, and how we're going to be able to continue to help people, like I said, achieve their dreams and the visions that they have for themselves. So, yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Stephen Cannon, Stevachii, Field Vision Media. Appreciate all the time you spent. I say this every time I do these interviews. I can go in like a whole another hour. So we have to do recurring guests and bring you on. But I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So many more stories that we could go through. So, but no, I love it. Yeah, you're awesome, Adam. This has been a pleasure of mine, an honor. And I hope that all this does is helps other people on their journeys, and at least helps a little bit. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out anytime in our DMs, Phil Vision Media or Stevachii, and we'll help out. But best of luck to you as well, Adam.